them the opportunity to almost skip a step and go global with the right ecosystem and the right relationships, because the opportunities are there. And we kind of all kind of have a responsibility of working together and having that information share and building those relationships that will allow them to do it when they, aren't present all the time. So that's a very good question. I think the opportunity is something that we can definitely expound upon, throughout this conversation, and even in our work with letting those good and bad, experiences out, because sometimes the bad experiences for the diaspora actually ends up being very powerful, and it becomes perceived risk and not actual risk all the time. So that there's an opportunity to leverage media and relationships to continue this motivation and this interest in some of the lesser known geographies on the continent.
And I'll just stay with you, Larry, on that, on keeping the diaspora interested. What factors would you say can enhance that interest? Because we're looking at things like tax benefits. Are we seeing an increased interest in investing in Africa when there are some fiscal incentives to making investments?
Absolutely. I think incentives are a great way not only to, entice participation, but it's also a way for African countries to compete and be creative with how they can really show the value proposition and the advantages of their particular geography, right? Because it is a very, very competitive market. When you think about if I'm, in the U.S. and I have manufacturing relationships in China, and now I'm, looking for other supply chains and other manufacturing hubs across the world. This is an opportunity for African countries to really put their best foot forward, so to speak, and provide what incentives and what aspects of their country and value propositions of their country that separates them from others. Yeah. It's that marketplace that lets the world know actually how big Africa is, because there's unless you've traveled, and unfortunately there are a lot of aspects of Africa's diaspora that actually haven't traveled back to the continent still. They've been to the Caribbean, and they've been to Europe and Italy and all of those great typical travel destinations of the world, but there are a lot of them that haven't been back to the continent. So there's a large kind of underestimation of actually how big it is, how massive of an opportunity it is, and where the opportunities are. So to your point, incentives, whether they be tax incentives, whether they be in some of our engagements, I've seen the ability to provide property, the ability to provide capital for training and developing human capital on the continent are wonderful opportunities for African diaspora and businesses to feel comfortable coming back and really being able to feel confident in capturing that opportunity in those respective countries.
You've actually commented on something that I hadn't thought of before, but maybe part of the path to encouraging more investment would be to familiarize this, to get the people familiar with what they're investing in. Because if you've never taken a holiday in Africa, which may not be true for the immigrants since they've been in Africa before, but it could be more true for the African Americans. And maybe they would be more comfortable making an investment in Africa if they were aware of what is out there, and it's not some large jungle. Samuel, would you like to jump in here and say something on this particular question?